Hello students. This part of the lecture I will be covering the water soluble vitamins, and as we have studied before, as compared to the fat soluble vitamins, these are relatively cheaper, and people mostly add it to they fortify the food such as the cereals with these kind of vitamins. Only vitamin C, which is also a water soluble vitamin, is used for its functionality. So there are various water-soluble vitamins such as thiamine, which is a B1 vitamin. The B2 is riboflavin. Pyridoxine is vitamin B6. Cobalamin is B12. We have biotin, pantothenic acid, niacin, folacin, and vitamin C. So, so the vitamin B1 is thiamine, which is involved in the carbohydrate metabolism, and its deficiency causes beriberi. In Sinhalese, which is a Sri Lankan language, beriberi means I can't, I can't. So it helps body to metabolize glucose and affects the central nervous system. On the other hand, B2 is riboflavin. It is also involved in the energy metabolism. B6 is pyridoxine. It serves as a neurotransmitter and it is coenzyme in over 100 reactions. So B12, the vitamin cobalamin, is involved in the development of the red blood cells, and its lack of this vitamin leads to anemia. And it is hard for the vegans to get this vitamin. So the biotin is involved in the fatty acid synthesis, and its deficiency causes skin diseases and hair loss. Pantothenic acid is found in many foods, and it is essential for metabolism of carbohydrates, proteins, alcohol, and fat. Choline, which is a major component of the cell membrane, folate, which we are aware of, the folic acid, and its deficiency can cause neural tube defects in utero. So in many years ago, a Rutgers professor in US asked for FDA for its approval and its enrichment in the food. So we start with the first fats, the water soluble vitamin, vitamin B1, which is thiamine. You can see the structure of this vitamin here on the right side, and it is in 1885 Takaki prevented the beriberi in the Japanese Navy by making some changes in the diet. And the year 1911, Funk, he obtained this vitamin from the rice polishings, and he called this vitamin as vital amine. Whereas two scientists, Janssen and Donath, in 1926, they isolated the crystalline form of vitamin B1 from the rice polishings, and because of the presence of this, if you can see the sulfur group in the structure, in this molecule, it is called as thiamine, and it is measured as milligram or microgram, and it can be determined by various chemical methods, and it was measured by bioassays using various animal models such as pigeons, rats, and chicks. So it is the various sources of this vitamin are brown rice, corn, whole wheat, wheat germ, dry beans, peas, soybeans, peanuts from plant sources. So the required daily allowance is, the minimum requirement is 0.2 mg per 1000 calories. This is the minimum requirement, whereas the required daily allowance is 0.5 mg per 1000 calories. So about 20 to 25 to 50% of this vitamin is lost during cooking and during the baking process, such as baking the breads. It's 15 to 20% of it is lost. It is soluble in water, and it is destroyed by the presence of alkali and at higher temperatures. And in addition to that, addition of soda to the green leafy vegetables to maintain the color of the green leafy vegetables destroyed this vitamin. So absorption, as we spoke in the earlier slides, that it is readily absorbed by the intestinal mucosa by passive diffusion and the active transport, and it is carried by to the liver by the portal circulation, and it combines with the pyrophosphate to form thiamine pyrophosphate, which is a coenzyme for and it is also known as a co-carboxylase. It is stored in the liver either as thiamine pyrophosphate or it complexes with magnesium and specific proteins, which is the active form of the carboxylase enzymes such as pyruvate carboxylase. So the total amount in the whole body is about 30 mg, and it is rich in liver, heart, kidney, muscle, and the brain. So the blood contains only a trace amount. So during vitamin B1 deficiency, it is lost from the body stores very rapidly. Its deficiency results when the intake is less than 0.2 mg per 1000 calories or due to the disturbance in the gastrointestinal tract due to diarrhea or vomiting. So the symptoms include the deficiency is more prolonged and severe, and it includes fatigue, loss of appetite, and loss of weight, emotional instability, and which is leads to fatal beriberi, which is of two types. These beriberi of two types, one is a wet beriberi and another is dry beriberi. The wet beriberi, we have edema and cardiac failure, so accumulation of water, and the tissue becomes large due to accumulation. So whereas dry beriberi, there are multiple neurotic symptoms, the peripheral neuropathy, and most actively it leads to weaknesses and tenderness of the muscles. There is enlarged heart, and tachycardia is disruption in the heartbeat. So so the urinary excretion, it varies directly with the dietary intake. This cannot tell anything about the body stores or the depletion from the body. So there is a test called thiamine retention test, wherein 5 mg of the thiamine is administered, and less than 20 microgram of thiamine excretion in 4 hours urine sample indicates its deficiency. And there is another test called erythrocyte transketolase test, ETK, and here this is most popular test for the clinical assessment of this vitamin, and because this test measures the TPP dependent enzyme activity, and that is the transketolase is in the pentose phosphate pathway, and we are aware that the sugars pentosis comes from the pentose phosphate pathway, and NADPH is also produced during the pentose phosphate pathway, and the enzyme activity is assayed in the red cell, the hemolysates, in two identical conditions, one with the added TPP and one without added TPP. And if there is about 20 to 25% stimulation, it indicates the thiamine deficiency. So RBCs must be kept in ice in order to do this, because in order to preserve the enzyme activity. Also, there are other tests which include to test is elevation in the levels of pyruvic acid, lactate, and in the blood after the exercise, after the administration of the standard amount of glucose. So the biochemical functions of this thiamine pyrophosphate is a coenzyme for pyruvate carboxylase, alpha-ketoglutarate carboxylase, and transketolase, and we can treat this with taking the B complex vitamins or high protein and caloric diet. Toxicity not occurs because it is not stored in large amounts in the body. The second water-soluble vitamin is riboflavin. It is heterocyclic, and you can see here in the structure there is a sugar, the ribitol is attached to this. The ring structure is conjugated and thus it can give rise to the color and a fluorescent pigment. It is heat stable, but it is sensitive to the visible light and it can decompose irreversibly. So in 1933, the pure crystalline B2 vitamin, which is riboflavin, was isolated by Girogi and Kuhn and Wagner. In 1934, the chemical structure was elucidated by Kuhn and Wagner, and later in 1934 they also synthesized it synthetically by this vitamin. So the richest sources are liver, kidney, and heart. So the woman requires about 1.3 mg per day, whereas a man requires 1.6 mg per day, and the required daily allowance is 0.6 mg per 1000 calories. So this amount can be increased during pregnancy, lactation, and during growth conditions. So, so the pasteurization of the milk may destroy about 10 to 20% of this, and direct exposure to sunlight can also destroy 75% of the vitamin B2. So biochemical functions of this, it functions as a part of the two coenzymes, the FMN and FAD, which you have studied in your previous metabolism. And it is participating in various oxidation reduction reactions. It is also involved in the formation of RBCs. So FMN, when combines with ATP, gives rise to FAD and pyrophosphate, and this acts as a coenzyme. This is a coenzyme which is synthesized from the riboflavin, and FMN acts as a component of complex 1 of the electron transport chain. So here you can see both the structures, FMN and FAD. So the riboflavin is synthesized mostly in the higher plants, yeast, lower fungi, and by some bacteria. And it is present in food either in the free state, which is in the riboflavin, or as riboflavin 5-phosphate or FAD. So all these three have vitamin B2 activity. So it is absorbed from the small intestine by phosphorylation dephosphorylation sequence in the mucosa, and body carefully regulate the enzyme internal stores, and it's in severe deficiency 1/3 of the normal amount is seen in the liver, kidney, and heart in the experimental animals. So the total content of the body is about 15 mg, unlike thiamine, which is 30 mg, and it is mainly present in the form of FMN and FAD, and excreted largely unchanged in the urine. And its deficiency, the most common deficiency is vascularization of the cornea. You can see the picture here. There is a corneal vascularization. There are problems with dermatitis, glossitis, and cheilosis and anemia. So majorly the vascular manifestations are the earliest signs, and the eyes become sensitive to light, and they have blurred vision, itching, watering, soreness, and increased number of capillaries are developed inside the eye. You can see here in this picture. And so the eyes becomes bloodshot in appearance. The angular stomatitis means the cracks in the corners of the lips, and the cheilosis is the painful cracks in the lips wherein during the long deficiency conditions. The moist dermatitis on the areas of nose can be seen, and the cracks in the skin. So there is a tongue becomes magenta color, the glossitis, and the lips and the tongue becomes purple red and skinny in appearance, shiny in appearance, and the mouth becomes increasingly sore, and you cannot feel the taste. So there are tests. So the riboflavin, FAD, and FMN levels can be measured in the plasma or from the red blood cells, but cannot give any information about the body stores. So people have done enzymatic assays, especially the erythrocyte glutathione reductase activity assay, EGR assay. So in which the NADPH, which is the pentose phosphate pathway product, together with the glutathione disulfide, which is getting reduced and giving rise to two molecules of glutathione along with NADP. So the activity coefficient here with addition of FAD is measured, and the activity without the addition. So this is a ratio. The activity coefficient is the ratio of activity with the addition of FAD and activity without the addition of FAD. So this activity coefficient value of 1.4 is indicative of the deficiency conditions. So the third water-soluble vitamin is nicotinic acid, or we call it niacin. As we know, it is a very important nicotinic acid. Nicotine is very important alkaloid of the tobacco. But nicotinic acid was synthesized in 1867 by the oxidation of nicotine, and you can see the structure here, and its role in nutrition was not very well known at that time, but it was first isolated in about 1911 from by two workers, Funk in England and Suzuki in Japan. And the significance was not understood because they were not looking for anti-beriberi factor. So here for the niacin, which is B3, it is involved in the energy metabolism. The disease pellagra is very important in this. So there are 4 Ds which need to be kept in mind in pellagra: D dermatitis, D diarrhea, D dementia, and D death. So there are 4 conditions, and here you can see in the picture. So this has also due to the inability to absorb the niacin, vitamin B3 or the amino acid tryptophan may cause pellagra. So this disease, pellagra, has 4 symptoms: dermatitis, diarrhea, dementia, and death. And this is characterized by scaly sores, mucosal changes, and mental symptoms. So pellagra was seen in population in the areas where corn or the maize or jowar was the main food. And so the Goldberger cured and prevented pellagra by diet changes by including the meat and fruits and eggs in the diet. So he also demonstrated the presence of the pellagra preventive factor, PP factor, in the food, show that it's a deficiency disease. So he also in 1928 the Goldberger showed that the yeast extract, the boiled yeast extract, can cure the pellagra, and pellagra preventive factors are defined as heat stable vitamins of the B complex. So the physiological activity of the nicotinic acid has no resemblance with the activity of nicotine, because nicotine is harmful, and it is surprising that such a product, which is a poisonous product like nicotine, could be converted by oxidation into life-saving vitamin, which is niacin. So the niacin, the name itself, in order to avoid the confusion, the nicotinic acid was renamed as niacin. The nicotine Ni comes from the first 2 letters, acid AC, and vitamin is In. So niacin, nicotinic acid vitamin, the first 2 letters of nicotinic, and then acid AC, and vitamin, the last 2 letters. So the nicotinic acid is sparingly soluble in water, but it is more soluble in alkaline medium, and nicotinamide is highly soluble in water. It is extremely stable in heat, light, acid, alkali, and oxidation. So the sources are the peanuts, peanut butter are the richest sources. The poultry, meat, fish are also the rich sources. Potatoes, legumes may contain fair amounts, but very important fact to be noted is 1/60th of the dietary tryptophan, which is the amino acid, is converted to niacin. So that means a 60-gram protein represents about 600 mg of tryptophan, and that is the 1% of the protein is tryptophan, which will be accountable for 10 mg of niacin. So usually 2/3 of the niacin requirements is coming from the tryptophan. So tryptophan is an important amino acid which is to be considered here. So the 90% of the niacin in the cereal is in the outer husk, and it is lost in the milling process. So the daily allowance is 4.4 mg per 1000 calories, and that is a minimum amount required. 6.6 is the required daily allowance per 1000 calories of food. So it is for women it is 9 mg per day, or for men it is 13 mg per day to prevent pellagra. So niacin is readily absorbed from the small intestine. Body reserves are very little, and excess niacin is absorbed, is methylated in the form of N-methyl nicotinamide and is excreted in the urine. So there are other end product of excretion such as 2 or 6-pyridine. So the toxicity, it was found that the lethal dose 50 for rat is 7 grams per kg body weight. So the amide is preferred for therapeutic purpose over the acid because acid form can act as a vasodilator. So the blood vessels can dilate and give side effects like dizziness, nausea, and flushing of the skin. So the pellagra appears several months after the dietary deficiency, and it can involve the gastrointestinal tract, skin, nervous system, and early signs can be loss of appetite, loss of weight, fatigue, headache, backache, poor health in general, and the tongue and the lips get also affected, and they get abnormally red in color or purple in color. So anemia may be found in these conditions. Nausea and vomiting are followed by severe diarrhea. So dermatitis, especially exposed skin surface like hand, feet, knees, and neck areas, rough cracked skin, scaly skin can be seen. Neurological symptoms, confusion, dizziness, and memory hallucination, dementia, that is mental deterioration, and can be noted in the severe cases. So there are 4 Ds, and you have to keep it in mind: dermatitis, diarrhea, dementia, and death. So the last one is vitamin C, which is ascorbic acid. It is very inexpensive to add to the food, and it's rich in lime and citrus fruits. The deficiency leads to scurvy, the bleeding of the teeth can be seen, sunken eyes, and pale skin. Thank you so much.